The Yakuza, or Like a Dragon series, is home to many composers, and my channel is home to many videos on them. Each of them bring all of their own unique skills and tastes to each game's soundtrack, creating a combined meal of awesomeness. And back on Christmas Day of 2022, I made a whole video just gushing over their collective talent, and part of that video involved pointing out specific quirks or patterns certain composers do with a lot of their songs. So considering it's been about a year and a half and we've had 2 brand new soundtrack releases, I'm going to do what most people do on YouTube and basically make the same video but a little different. Except unlike a lot of people on YouTube, I'm actually conscious of that fact, so I'll be expanding on a lot of what I talked about. Something I had a lot of fun doing when I played through the 2 most recent games of Gaiden and Infinite Wealth was using the knowledge I've gained to try and identify who did what song as I hear it for the first time. And you know, hopefully you can learn a thing or two from this video so that when the next game releases you might be able to challenge your friends, who I'm sure will definitely care, to a little competition to guess who did what. Now, some things to consider, aka some things for me to preemptively apologize for, is that I know a lot about these composers, but I don't really know a lot about music. I listen to a lot, but when it comes to the theory side of things as well as certain terminology, I'm quite unknowledgeable. I've technically been playing the drums for 14 years, unless you don't count me smacking the hell out of my body, table, and any object in my hand as playing the drums, then I haven't really played for the last 8. As with most drummers, I don't know dick about music theory, I just hit things. But regardless, I'll be elaborating on the styles of all of the most important composers from the series, and for most of them, using my observations of these composers to try and identify at least one song that never got an official release, and I think whichever composer may have done. Another thing too is that I'll be looking at a lot of songs, some of which may be from later points in a game that you haven't played yet or something, so there will be music spoilers. But considering this is a very general series-wide topic, I'm not going to be providing context to things. The subtitles are often all my recordings, and for the most part I'll be avoiding directly showing spoilery stuff unless it's something that everyone knows about or it's, you know, front cover of the game sort of thing. The first person I'll be talking about is easily the most important composer of them all, being Hidenori Shoji. Not only is he the most important, but even still to this day, he's definitely the most iconic. Although these days, his importance has kinda dissipated, not because he's washed or stepped back for retirement, but instead because he has a lot more people that help him share the weight, who I'll get to talk about later. But all the way back in Yakuza 1, he did a majority of the soundtrack, and he's also served as basically the head music guy for a majority of the games. Shoji's most iconic trait that's definitely a core component of practically every song he makes is his undying love for his guitars. If you ever found a Hidenori Shoji song that doesn't have at least a single guitar, I'd be very surprised. In fact, it's even hard to find a photo of the guy without guitars. But despite that, he tends to use a variety of different guitars to create his music. Most commonly, you'll find him using electric guitars. And using these guitars, he creates lots of funky, rocky kind of songs, with him being quite attracted to a cheeky distortion pedal. This can be heard in the main theme of the series, and what you can kind of realistically consider as the first song of the series, being Receive You. But of course, his songs aren't just purely electric guitar. He likes to do the same heavy distortion to bass guitars, he uses a lot of electric sounds you hear in electronic music, and there's some times where he goes beyond his usual style and creates something entirely different, like with the song Triplet After Triplet from Yakuza Like a Dragon. But alongside his love of electric instruments and electric guitar, he has an amazing ability to bring in a more traditional sound. Shoji's other passion is pretty much a parallel to his first passion, being his acoustic guitars. Now, he isn't the only one of the composers who can create a beautiful sound with an acoustic guitar, but what is a unique thing that Shoji does compared to other composers is flamenco sounds. Flamenco guitar. I don't know how to describe it. There's Spanish sounding stuff, basically. The example I'll show here is a song from the game Ishin called, according to Google, La Muerte del Gobierno. Over time, it seems like Shoji was more willing to experiment with new sounds and genres, and so while it sounds like a bit of a backhanded compliment, and I promise it isn't, his newer stuff is significantly more varied than some of his older work. You'd think that creating well over 100 songs over the course of roughly 18 years would make a lot of his songs mush together or sound stale, but despite that, he manages to stay fresh, original, and bloody well awesome. Shoji's style inspired the direction that the series would take in regards to soundtracks, and although both his style and the taste of the games evolved over time, there are still many elements of Yakuza 1's soundtrack that you can still feel in any of the recent games. And so because of that, I feel that his music has been a bit of an inspiration for many of the other composers that have worked on the series, which you might be able to see later in this video. But up next we have Yuri Fukuda. Her first song was a single song in Yakuza 1, and then apparently also composed the original version of a remix song in Kenzan. I don't really know what's up with that one. But it wasn't until realistically Yakuza 4 when she started to become a mainstay composer. Before then, she seemed to just help with sound effects and other sound related production for the games that the RGG team worked on. But these days, alongside Hidenori Shoji, she is one of the main talents for the RGG games, even being the sound director for the last 3 Super Monkey Ball games, which if you didn't know is made by the same dev team as the Yakuza games. But for now, the easiest way for me to describe Yuri Fukuda's music is that it's the kind of music that you can close your eyes and just feel something. Something deep, so deep that you feel it in your very soul. But despite that, she's also a pocket composer, a term coined by me just then. Now, playing in the pocket, that's something I understand very well as a drummer, but she's no Steve Jordan, shout out to anyone who knows him, because instead what I mean is that she kind of likes to keep her talents hidden, so that way she can just jump out at you with them and blow your socks off. Her traits can be obvious, but the most obvious ones are only in a few of her songs. For example, she definitely likes to lean towards a lot of reverb in her songs, and she creates some very atmospheric music. She also does enjoy putting vocals that sound like a tribal or cult chant sort of thing. An example of those reverby, atmosphere building songs with some tribal chanting is the song Illusion from Judgment. But then some examples of that music that sings to your soul is something like Pure Love and Kamurocho from Yakuza 4. But when she wants to, Yuri Fukuda can create some absolutely incredible songs that make you close your eyes tight, clench your fists tighter, and get your heart pumping so hard that you need to clench your chest even tighter because you're having a heart attack. An example of this is the song Kizuna from Yakuza 6. But of course, the stuff I mentioned here isn't all she's capable of. A song like Skate Rat from Lost Judgment is a good example of her varied talents, sounding completely different to all of her stuff that I've shown so far. Now, this is a pure guess on my part, as the soundtrack for RGG Studios' Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise was never officially released, but there's one song from that game that I feel confident in saying was composed by her. This song, of course, has no official name, but it's the battle theme for Thouser. How do I know it's her? Well, it starts the exact same way as her song Destination from Judgment, but it also is quite literally the prequel to her song Pelicanian Dance from Infinite Wealth. And then it has a weird rap thing like Skate Rat from Lost Judgment. And to save time, I won't show it, but if you listen to the Castle Long Battle theme from Kiwami 2, I think that's definitely her as well. Moving on though, we have another wonderfully talented lady, and another one of the main composers for the Yakuza series, being Sari Yoshida. She joined the team with Dead Souls, and again, just like Yuri Fukuda, helped out with sound production at the start. She then composed her first song in Yakuza 5, although it wasn't until Ishin that she properly implemented herself into the music of the games. Her style is actually quite similar to Hidenori Shoji's, so close in fact that it's almost like a parallel universe version of Shoji's style. So when it comes to identifying her music, it's kinda hard to tell what is her and what is Shoji. However, one very unique trait of a lot of her songs is unintelligible English. Shoji's songs had a couple of songs like that, like how the lyrics of Full Faith are but he doesn't really do that anymore. With Yoshida, it's not that the singer struggles with English, but instead that she intentionally muffles or disrupts the English in some sort of way to make it hard to hear. These English lyrics kind of sound like they're samples from random English rap songs, but honestly I wouldn't be surprised if they're not actually and Yoshida's just made them sound like they are. But a prime example of her funky style that's similar to Shoji's, as well as her incomprehensible English, is her arrangement of Shoji's own Intelligence for Violence in Yakuza Kiwami. She's also a big fan of electric guitar, again like Shoji, but you can tell it's more of a tool for her as opposed to Shoji, where his guitars are basically his body and soul. Rather than plucking individual strings and notes and whatever, she leans more towards just doing a bunch of power chords throughout her song, which is probably the right way to describe it, I don't know. But an example of this is when the sick-ass guitar kicks in with Two-Face Castle from Gaiden. But then just like Shoji, you can very easily branch out and do something completely unpredictable and unequivocally amazing. This is most evident from what is probably her most beloved song, being the beautiful song Destiny from Yakuza 6, where she just goes freaking crazy. But while it doesn't have her signature English that makes you say, huh? There is one song from Kiwami 2 that I think might be her. I'm not completely confident, and it'll be interesting to see how wrong I might be if ever Kiwami 2's soundtrack gets released. But anyway, the theme of the final long battle of Kiwami 2 when you're running through Kamurocho, dubbed by the fans as either heading for Kamuro or Kamurocho Hills, might be her work. Now again, it may well be someone else, but that persistent electric guitar through the song that doesn't really stand above any of the other instruments, as well as the accompanying drum beat and violins, is one such example of Yoshida's style. Maybe. But anyway, it's on to the next guy. Or two guys, depending on what period of time you're looking at, being Hide Lunch. Or Hid Lunch. Hid Lunch, I still don't know. Yasuyuki Matsuzaki, being the one guy who does all the Hide Lunch songs now, is a composer who first joined the franchise with a PSP spin-off that was much different to the rest of the games on their respective consoles. I'm pretty sure that it was not the actual developers of the game, being Sin Sophia, that handled the soundtrack, and instead that it was Sega, which was why that soundtrack included people like Shoji and Hideki Naganuma of Jet Set Radio fame. But ever since then, Hide Lunch has become a very important staple to the series. At first, he did mostly battle themes and would occasionally do a karaoke song or two, but it wasn't until Judgment when he clearly found his true calling. Cutscene music. Now before Judgment, they never really put cutscene music in the official soundtrack, so I don't know which cutscene songs were done by who most of the time, but in Judgment he started doing quite a large number of them. The battle themes he composed are all awesome, but with a song like Yagami Detective Agency from Judgment, he is really freaking good at setting a mood. He's much less reliant on MIDI stuff, or at least seemingly so, because a lot of his music uses very authentic feeling instruments. It sounds like some real garage band kind of stuff, using instruments traditionally found in a modern rock band. The bass in a lot of his songs always adds so much to his music, as well as his 6-string guitars, whether they be acoustic or electric, but the most important instrument to him, or at least to me to him, is the drums. Of course, pretty much everyone has drums in their music, but Hide Lunch is an absolute god on the drums. There's such a heavy focus on the drums in his music that when I listen to his stuff, it makes me want to get back into playing the drums myself. Prime example of this is probably my favorite song of his, which definitely has my favorite drum track of any of his songs, being Hyena's Wheezing from Judgment. And another thing that he likes is playing the piano. Some of his songs, typically being the more emotional cutscene music, will have a fair bit more piano than his battle themes, but something I like is that he kind of treats the piano as like a special guest to his songs. After a certain point in the song, he'll chuck in a little bit of piano that will take center stage, and before it outstays its welcome, he'll cut right back to the kick-ass action. This can be seen in a song like Victory Road from Yakuza 5. He provides a very unique and, at least for me, a very appreciated talent to the franchise. His style is so engaging. It's fun and exciting, or sad or chill, or whatever the situation calls for, and his music has added so much to the cutscenes and battles he composed for. Hell, I mean, even the Infinite Wealth credits were entertaining thanks to him. Understanding all of these traits makes me pretty confident in saying that another unreleased song from the Kaito Files was done by him, being the theme of the secret boss, the Blood Drunk Master. Dubbed by the fans as either Hasty Spirit or Neon Sunset, this theme is pretty much the perfect way to describe Hide Lunch. But before I showcase it, just a random thought of mine, I had nowhere else to say, but I think this theme is probably more appropriately Kaito's theme. Everything about it just feels like Kaito, and it also plays when you're fighting with Kaito and Gaiden, so I mean, you know. But the song opens with some mood-setting, mysterious sounding stuff Hide Lunch might do in a cutscene song. And then it leads into some pulse-pounding action, complete with a phenomenal drum beat that it feels like it's the core of the whole song. Then it comes in with the special guest piano. All for it to get right back into that pulse pounding action again, complete with a specific sound effect that he used in Hyena's wheezing. And I'd also like to say, just before I move on, I've always loved that song, but I never considered it as one of my favorites until one day I sort of realized that I listened to it about like 7 times a day, every single day. So yeah, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. But speaking of favorites, up next we have 83 Key, who is definitely my personal favorite composer from the whole crew. He started back in the day with Dead Souls, doing a remix for a karaoke song as well as a variation of the main theme. And since then, he's done at least one song for most of the games since. Now over the years, he really has only done a small amount of songs for a lot of the games, with him only doing a single song in Yakuza 5, Kiwami, and 6. So you might think that only having done a few songs would make it hard to identify his music, but you would be wrong. Pretty much every composer for the series has done at least one electronic, techno, dubstep, whatever kind of song, but for most of them, it isn't their main style. 83 Key though is the master of that stuff, being his whole shebang. He's more than capable of doing more, but his music is the kind of stuff you would hear at a club. Or, well, what various movies, TV shows, and video games play for club scenes, because if you couldn't tell by literally anything I've said so far in this video, I don't go outside. But ever since Judgment, he's been given the opportunity to do more and more, and so now we have a surprising number of important battle themes being done by him. He also worked on Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise and Kiwami 2, and while I could go and identify one of his songs, to be quite frank, it'll probably be pretty obvious if you just go through and have a listen to his confirmed catalogue of music. On top of his very dubsteppy, techno-y, whatever the hell the genre of music is actually called, being his obvious identifier, he also has a trait that isn't very unique, but the way he handles it is. I know a lot of songs have like bridges and choruses and stuff, and moments where there's a key change that can completely shift the tone of the song, but 83 Key is a big fan of doing these masterful shifts that completely transform a song. You can see what I mean with a song like Lambda from Judgment, which goes from this to this. And now I know obviously there are a lot of artists like this, but 83 Key has always reminded me of a very specific artist, so much so that I kind of get the feeling that maybe 83 Key is also a fan of this artist, being a guy named Carpenter, look, I don't want to pronounce it a certain way and be completely wrong, so I'm just going to say Carpenter Bruh. Unfortunately, I can't play any of Carpenter Bruh's music without doing a bunch of annoying copyright avoiding bullshit, but I will play this little bit from a song called Soul of the Ogre from Like a Dragon Gaiden, which at least seemingly is influenced by Bruh's style. And the reason as to why I've come up with this theory is these two artists both just strike a specific chord in my brain, I guess, that no other artist does, as well as 83 Key over time creating much more intense music than what he used to do. But before I move on, because he is my favorite, I thought to just give a little extra shout out to 83 Key. Not only does he come up with awesome original songs, but he's also done a handful of rearrangements of some of the other main composers' songs. I'll talk about her later, but if I had a penny for every time 83 Key took an amazing Chihiro Aoki song and somehow made it sick as fuck, I'd have 2 pennies. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So please enjoy digging your heels for a little bit. Anyway, the next composer is someone who is actually quite similar to both Hidenori Shoji and Hyde Lunch in various ways. This man is the very man who inspired me to dive deeper into understanding the composers of this series, being the one, the only, Zenta. He began work for this series with a sequel to the PSP spin-off that brought in Hyde Lunch, being obviously Kuroyo 2. And since then, he's done quite a number of songs for the series, mostly doing minigame or side themes, but sometimes he gets to do main story battle themes. He's similar to Hyde Lunch in the sense that his music also involves a lot of traditional rock band instruments. In fact, a lot of his songs really do just have a couple of guitars, some drums, and that's it. But speaking of guitars, his connection to Shoji is that this man lives and breathes guitar. I'm sure if you extracted his blood, you'd see his blood cells are little Fender Stratocasters. His fixation on guitars and his traditional approach to rock is a very apparent aspect about his music, but I think something that always remains true is that no matter what his song is for, it will always be fun. It's hard to describe, but not only does it sound like he's having a shitload of fun making the music, but the music itself somehow feels like it's having fun. Two prime examples are Troubleshooting Star and Interplanetary Spark from Yakuza 0, definitely two of his most popular songs. If I had to guess, I believe the opening of Yakuza 0 was also composed by him, but I'm not all too confident in that one. Mostly. But instead of showing you those songs, I'll show you something that I am still impressed by. Technically, Zenta's first ever contribution to the series was with the first boss theme of Kuroyo 2, being a song called Little Revenge. A song that, for lack of a more sophisticated sounding description, goes insanely hard. Then we cut to his most recent contribution with Like a Dragon Gaiden, where he arranged a song from Yakuza Like a Dragon composed by Chihiro Aki. His arrangement quite literally just mixed up the song a little bit, added 2 guitar tracks and some drums, and somehow he managed to prove to any and all remake haters that no matter how good the original may be, it can always be improved, because somehow by doing what is basically nothing on paper, he turned an already good song into straight up divinity. Now on to the next guy, Keitaro Hanada. Out of all of the composers, his music is the hardest to identify. Like, without a doubt, you would struggle to hear a song and go, yep, that's definitely him. But before showing some of his songs, he was actually one of the original composers for Yakuza 1. He only composed 2 songs, and then sadly he didn't do anything else, but then he came back for Ishin and composed 7 songs, and then he left again. But then many years later, he once again returned, doing another 2 songs, but this time for Lost Judgment. And then we patiently waited for the next brand new release of Like a Dragon Gaiden, and it seemed like he has remembered the code to get into the gate at Sega HQ, because he composed 9 songs for the game, and although Infinite Wealth was made first, he later did another set of songs, this time being a whole 24 songs for Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. I really do hope that he sticks around for good now, even if it's only for a couple of songs per game, because it fills me with a lot of joy as someone who loves his music so much to say that he is now one of the main composers for the series. But like I said before, his music is very difficult to identify, and so considering we've gone through a lot of composers in this video already, I'll present you with 4 different songs, and I want you to try and identify which one Keitaro Hanada did. So, are you confident in your guess? Or perhaps you're still not sure? Well, if you answered any of the songs, you'd be right. And that's because he did all 4 of them. You see, the reason why he's impossible to identify is because, as you can probably guess from hearing that little selection there, Hanada can do literally anything. He is a jack of all trades in the truest sense, being capable of writing incredible music no matter the genre. There are some little things you can pick up on and identify between songs, like the parts in the Groove from Lost Judgment, Knavish from Infinite Wealth, or Son of a Gun from Yakuza 1, where it goes all like, you know, like it goes all crazy and shit, like. But even then, he is a master at doing whatever and making it work. If you hear a song and while you listen to it, your ears start to erupt with pleasure and you can't figure out who the hell made the song, it's probably Keitaro Hanada. Of course though, considering his tendency to dip in and out, there are likely 0 songs by him that have gone uncredited, so as compensation, here's Kuki. Because as Ryosuke Hori himself says, Kuki's the best. But then we have the final composer, the one who I can safely say is just objectively the best. The one who saw an incredible evolution, the one who oozes talent, the one who could do a theme for one of the most incredible moments in the history of video games, and you'll walk away not even remembering what the hell happened because all you could think about was the music. It's the one, the only, Chihiro Aoki. She started with Yakuza 3, again aiding in the sound production side of things. But then shortly after, she started composing music with Yakuza 4. And in a very short time, she went from composing a couple of songs, to composing a large number of them, to being the music director of Ishin, and eventually Yakuza 6, Gaiden, and Infinite Wealth. She has composed easily some of the best songs I've ever heard in my life, and despite her ability to create so many unique and incredible songs, she probably has the easiest traits to spot with what she does. In her early days, it was a little harder. It may not have been the first song she actually made for the series, but in terms of soundtrack appearance, the very first song she ever did was Tanimura's battle theme from Yakuza 4, Infinite Handcuffs. This song is a very energetic, jazzy song that you'd struggle to resist the urge to dance in your chair to. Much like when I first heard Akiyama's battle theme by Hidenori Shoji, when I first heard this song, I went, "Whoa, damn!" But you can see one classic instrument with this series that Aoki is also guilty of being in love with, being an electric guitar. She did a decent handful of songs for Yakuza 5, but there are a few that are also very important to listen to understand her style. Of course, the first two are Shinada's battle theme, what a funkastic hit, and one of Haruka/Akiyama's dance themes, Be the Star. Now I only say that because they are both just awesome songs, and it's a sin if you ever skip either of them in a playlist. But anyway, some other songs from Yakuza 5 are still to this day played in the games, being the beautiful, smooth jazz that plays in the background of bars and stuff, like the iconic song, Highway. So you can already tell that she's very good at smooth and funky sort of jazzy songs. At this point in her discography, you might think that clearly where she shines is in this sort of stuff that infects your toes with some sort of tapping virus, but now as time went on, I'm not sure what happened to her. Maybe she came out of her shell more and did what she wanted to do, or perhaps she began experimenting with new sounds until she found what clicked, or what I think is the true case is that some sort of god of music struck her with a creative lightning bolt and she started going freaking crazy. In Ishin, she did a lot of beautiful cutscene music, and I truly mean beautiful, as well as still very funky stuff like some songs in Kiwami, but then she shows what she's truly capable of by smacking everyone in the face with The Way of Life from Yakuza 6. But as we all know, goats climb, and this goat is still going with shit like Brutality from Yakuza Like a Dragon. Then she comes in from out of nowhere with Unwavering Belief from Lost Judgment. And then she kicks down the door with The End of Denial from Infinite Wealth. You can tell that not only can she funk you from behind, but she can also do these intense, heart-pounding and epic songs. But from these you'll start to notice her identifiable quirks. She loves her jazzy pianos and trumpets, she loves her funky or intense electric guitars, but she also loves using emotional violins or violas or whatever, I don't know the difference, stringed instruments basically. The buzzy sort of dubsteppy blahs, and I don't know how to describe it beyond just making noise, but the drums in her songs always sound like they cut off quickly. The sound never hangs. It's like that. And every now and then she likes to use a choir in her music to beautiful effect. But just because I can, here's the insanely sick violin part of The End of Denial, which is such a typically brilliant Chihiro Aoki song. These songs all include great examples of how she does her songs, but a perfect example of an unconfirmed song that was definitely done by her are two songs that, were they to ever be officially released, will probably be combined into one. These are the two themes that play right at the very end of the final long battle in Yakuza Kiwami 2. You really don't need any explanation from me to know that this is her, because you can tell it's her by the fact that you're about to be violently assaulted by some pure epicness. That's not a word, but whatever, listen to this. But then shortly after that, she did the final boss theme of Kiwami 2, which was confirmed by the mini soundtrack release of Yakuza Kiwami 2. This theme was actually a remix of the original final boss theme from Yakuza 2, which was done by Hidenori Shoji. The original A Scattered Moment from Yakuza 2 was a beautiful piano ballad accompanied by these drums and strings that just makes you feel things you really shouldn't be feeling from a PS2 game where NPCs are literally 3 polygons. It was a song so emotional that you would probably think that the final boss was like someone Kiryu's known his whole life, who I will show because it's the front cover of the game, so who cares. But in reality, Kiryu's known Ryuji for like a week or something, and yet somehow, Chihiro Aoki made it so much more powerful. It's still sad, it's still beautiful, but now it's even more of everything. It's a song that makes me cry, not even because of the context in-game, because I mean, I'll be honest, the fight really isn't that sad, guys, but just the song alone is just... like, it strikes a primal part of my soul. Every time Chihiro Aoki whips out the violin for a solo, I get this feeling in my chest like I've just been reunited with a friend that I thought was dead for years. She also adds some guitar, which is something I'm surprised Shoji didn't do himself originally, because it fits so well. Both acoustic and electric, it complements the song and the emotions within it so perfectly. None of these new instruments are enough to overpower the piano being the main instrument, as they instead rise it into this heavenly plane. I don't know how the hell she did any of what she did in A Scattered Eternal Moment from Kiwami 2, but it's a song that makes me dream that Chihiro Aoki keeps on pursuing her incredible passion for as long as she can. But now with that little Chihiro Aoki appreciation session out of the way, I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two, and maybe when the next game comes out you can hear a song and tell who actually made it. And if you can't, I can't blame you. Despite the fact that they have these identifiable traits and quirks, the composers for this series are all beyond talented and can't be locked down to simple definitions. They're artists, all aspiring to create true art, which time and time again they all do without fail. But before I go, there's one last song. A song so incredible that I think it may have changed the world forever. A song that became quite immensely popular from the quite immensely incredible Like a Dragon Gaiden, being Chihiro Aoki's I'm Fading Away. If you enjoyed, subscribe and all that stuff, please. No, actually, please do it. And while you're clicking all those juicy buttons, please enjoy the definition of art. I can't stop